Welcome to our webinar. The webinar is focusing on sports and football. The webinar is organized by World Learning and the Digital Communication Network as part of the International Sports Initiative Program of the U.S. Department of State Sports Diplomacy Division. I'm your host, speaking from Washington, Vlad Spencer, and I'm moderating this webinar with my colleague, Anna Tadevosyan, who is in Yerevan, Armenia. By now, after so many months of COVID, probably everybody knows the rules of engagement here in Zoom. It's a very interactive medium. We are going to be able to ask us questions, and please do on the chat that is connected to the system. Please also share your contact information, anything that you want to share about your work back home. This webinar is meant not only as a way to discuss an important topic, but at the same time, it's an important place to network and make friends, make professional friends, and stay in touch and work together. One aspect I'd like to mention to you that's a little bit different from the other webinars, but it's part of how unpredictable our life is. So one of the speakers, Paige Nielsen, who's a professional soccer player currently playing here in Washington, has practiced. So we did a brief interview with her yesterday, and we are going to show the interview during the program. However, Zoom is not the perfect medium for showing video, as many of you probably know. So what we do, we restream also on Facebook, and my colleagues, Aaron and Laurel are going to post in the chat room the address of the Facebook link. So whoever wants to actually watch the video in full motion, please go to Facebook, and you'll be able to do that. But at the same time, stay with us in Zoom, because Zoom will be the place where you could ask questions. Now, a few words about the program today. So the idea of this webinar was suggested actually by our growing network of professionals that are interested in sports for development. So the topic is to explore the challenges and opportunities in a sport that has been viewed for a very long time, actually probably not correct, was viewed for a long time as a monopoly of men, where women increasingly become an important part of the picture in many countries, like the United States being actually the main success stories when it comes to the sport, when it comes to football and soccer. Nevertheless, there are still challenges to be overcome, since the story of women's football is actually a metaphor for the larger story of women's rights and women's leadership. And we hope that, throughout this throughout this webinar, we're going to be able to actually touch on both aspects of it. The typical sports aspects, sports in terms of, sport development, but also the social issues that are involved in this very important sport, up-and-coming sport, successful sports worldwide. We have guests from all over the world, as we always do. So, in order to not to waste too much time with this introduction, I'll invite Anna to have the floor to start with the initial introductions of our speakers.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy that we have you again here. I will start by introducing our amazing speakers today. All of them are very involved in women football nowadays and were involved before and played in a professional level. So I'll start with Saline Al-Zubi. She's head of women football from Jordan Football Federation, and she's also a FIFA technical expert. And I'm very glad that we have Saline here, because it's very interesting to see how in traditional societies women football is growing and what kind of challenges they have. And we had many webinars, and we know now that wherever we are, how developed the country. Hear first from Saline about what's the situation in Jordan now.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the introduction, and hello, everyone. And as you said, the women's football is very important topic, and is very important now, right, for all women to play football. The situation in Jordan, knowing that Jordan is in the Middle East, is a Muslim country, you know, with the culture. So we have a long history of challenges that we have faced throughout our journey. I am the one of the first players who started playing in Jordan with the national team. We started in 2005. Then at that time, we had so many challenges because the families didn't accept the idea of their girls to play, starting from the family to the community to everyone. They faced us a lot, but we continue to keep up and playing and prove that we have the right to play. We want to continue our journey. So the first one who believed in us was, luckily, he was the president of Jordan Football Association, His Royal Highness Prince Ali. So he believed in us as women that we can play and we can do something. So I think it's all thanks goes to him because he supported us. And you know, when you have a leader supporting you, everyone will have to follow, even if they are not convinced yet of this idea, but because of his power, everyone started to follow. So the situation now is much better. Now we have professional league. It has been 2 years since we started our women's professional league. We hosted the Under-17 FIFA World Cup 4 years ago, and we hosted the Aegean Women's Cup to 2018, 2 years ago. Our ranking, our FIFA ranking is 52, our senior women's national team. So it's going great now. Now the parents start calling me. They want their daughters to play somewhere. So I'm happy for that because I never had this feeling from my father. So yeah, the situation is great now.
Perfect. I'll come back to you soon. So now I want to play the video of Paige, the interview that we took yesterday. I'll introduce her, Paige Nielsen. She's a professional soccer player. She plays for Washington Spirit. So we talked about, again, challenges, about how she started her career, and let's hear what Paige told us. I'll share now my screen, and I'm sorry that video will be like a picture, but sound, I hope, is good. So let's see.
My mom knew from at a young age that I really liked sports, and I was good at them. And so she got me into competitive soccer, basketball, gymnastics, softball, every sport you could think of when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I was good at pretty much anything that I got into, and I was either deciding whether I was going to be a gymnast or play all these sports. So that's when I really started to play soccer, basketball, and volleyball. And all my friends around me played soccer and basketball and volleyball, all of these sports. And I did it because I loved hanging with my friends, and I was really good at it. And I really liked the competitive aspect. I played with boys at a very young age, and I really liked the fact that girls could compete with boys. And yeah, I liked doing things that I was really good at. There's a lot of different things. I started with some teams in Germany, and they have a really long football history, and I really like their communities there around soccer. However, again, it was very polarized to men's teams, and they didn't pay much attention to the women. And I thought that was interesting because Germany had a really good national team at the time, and it was just interesting to see that even though they've had these clubs for a really long time, they still haven't really invested in these clubs in the women's side. But the training regimens were very different. The US, I think, kind of was a long ways using science and technology, kind of monitoring how much we run to what we eat. And in Germany, it was still very traditional where we run every day. We have 4 sessions a day. They ran people to the ground. People were getting injured. And I found the same thing. I was in South Korea for 2 years, and I think that is what made me the player I am today. Again, there's not a lot of fans or support with the women's side. However, we get paid like unemployment, so a lot of companies sponsor the women over there, and actually the pay is pretty good because we are sponsored by like Hyundai and in big companies. And so they haven't invested much in women's sports over there, but they do a good job, because in South Korea it's like the men go to work still and the women stay at home and are in the kitchen. And so that was very interesting to see. But soccer gives these women a chance to actually start like earning money for their families and stuff. But so the perception that we can't keep up with boys or play as well as the men. And so the number one thing is basically teaching the older generation and fans kind of more about soccer and what it means to be a really good soccer player, and kind of what we go through to make it at the top. The Chastains, the Mia Hams, the Christine Lillies, these incredible players. But we knew about it because we started broadcasting it. We started, it can't just be these amazing players. You have amazing players in all these countries. I'm sure Jordan has amazing players, but we just don't know about them. TV, media, company sponsorships, those are key to women's success with soccer. We are just getting broadcasted on CBS, and people are like, fans of the game are like, I have to look all over on the internet just to find a women's soccer game, and I'm getting sick of it because they don't have access to it. And these women have done a lot of outreach. So what got me personally into soccer was Mia Hamm came to Nebraska when I was like 6 years old, and she came and talked to our camp at Nebraska and goes, this is what you guys can be one day. And we watched videos of Brandi Chastain, and I drew a picture in my journal. I was like, I'm gonna go to North Carolina one day, because that's where she went, and it happened. So yeah, you reach out to these girls in any way you can, face to face, by TV, and basically light a fire within them and tell them that they can be and do whatever they want to do. And to see this passion from these people and how fun soccer is and can be, can really, really help grow the game. And we have to keep pushing, because we've been pushing since the 1999, 1996 Olympics. Yeah, it's incredible to see that Brazil and England have done so. I know that US Soccer is working on the appeal, and I think as community and fans, I think we can start petitioning for things, lobbying for equal pay. I mean, that goes so far. Everyone says that they don't have a voice, but we do. And the internet is very powerful these days. And so we have to keep pushing that we are doing the same exact job, if not more. And I think actually one of the most important things that could happen is, unfortunately, is that the men can start fighting for us as well. So like, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and old white men gave women the right to vote. So they had to vote for us to have the right to vote. So everything that happens in the history has been ultimately from the men deciding our fate, which is really unfortunate that we can't alone do it, but we do need their help.
So I want to thank you, Paige, because it was really very interesting interview that we had yesterday, and I hope next time we'll have her with us. Now I want to introduce, and probably all the participants here already know, that Brandy Chastain is our good friend, and she is coming to almost all our webinars, and we are very great every time to hear her as our mentor. And so, Brandy, can you hear me now here?
Yes, I can, Anna.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again for accepting invitation. And let's talk a little bit about the challenges that we face now with, as Paige said, equal pay. And as we said, like, men decided if the women should play or not, or the game should be broadcasted or not, because they decided so. So let's see what you think about this.
Well, I actually loved hearing from Paige, and as a matter of fact, I just met probably 15 of the Washington Spirit girls via Zoom within the last week, and had a conversation with them individually about how the professional thing is going, especially during this unusual time here in the US, with Black Lives Matter and COVID. And, if we didn't have enough stacked up against us already in terms of attempting to have a serious, legitimate, professional women's sporting soccer environment, we add those few things to it and it becomes even more challenging. But I feel that one reason it will be successful and it will continue to be relevant is because we have young women like Paige, and we have Soline, and we have Tafarel, and we have women who are invested with their life, not just it's something they do, right? So I'm always encouraged to hear young people like Paige talk and understand their history. So the history of even having access to sport through and history of voting and the rights of young women because of other people. And so I don't want to discount men in this conversation, because they're very important and they're critical to our success, just as Soline said about the president of the Jordanian Football Association, Prince Ali, because without those advocates, it becomes more difficult. So I feel that now is a different time than 1996, and it's a different time than 1999. And it's different because we have gained traction, and we do have momentum of 2015 World Cup victory, 2019 World Cup victory. And so here in the US, we don't have what I would call excuses any longer. There's no excuses for women's football not to be successful here. We've already proven that we have great tools and great assets in the players themselves, in coaching. Can we get better in these areas? 100%. There is absolutely no apathy in progression. There is absolutely a dedication to that progress, which is to continue developing young players. I am a youth soccer coach with the De Anza Force Soccer Club. I know Tafarel has been indebted to coaching young players in my community as well in Northern California. And so progress still has to move forward, whether it's on the ground at the grassroots level, or if it's at the professional level at the Washington Spirit. The announcements, and I don't want to step on anything Tafarel is going to be speaking about in terms of the announcement that Brazil made. But I would like to have a discussion about it after she speaks about it, because I do have some comments. But in terms of, my perspective, where we are and where we can go, and I see behind you all these women with medals around their necks celebrating victory, and that's not possible without support and advocacy and encouragement, as Soline has said. However, that only goes so far, right? Because the true measurement is the access and the views on the professional level, and the broadcasting, as Paige has said, to the mass public. So it's fine for football to live in these small pockets, and that our young girls are being encouraged and and supported, which I will continue to do in my nonprofit as the Bay Area Women's Sports Initiative, but also as a young developing coach for youth soccer. But I also know that money is, put your money where your mouth is and put it out on a massive scale. And that really is the only way for us to continue to grow this, because otherwise we're doing the same thing generation after generation. So I'm sorry if I'm feeling like my passion is starting to bubble up over and outside of my body, because I love having this conversation, but I hate having the same conversation. And it's about time for us to get past the encourage our young girls and support our young girls. What we should be saying is we support our young people and we encourage them to be their best. And when we do that, they should have an outlet to pursue their dreams at the highest level possible, and not with any roadblocks to access or broadcast or to finances. Those should be a given. That's the way it should be now. This is the, we're in 2020 and everything has changed, and we have too many people, males and females, who deserve the opportunity to do this, not because they want to, but because they have invested themselves and they have given to the game what it deserves, and they should be able to reap those rewards that men and have been in the past in terms of sport or business.
Hello.
I can hear you, Anna.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
okay.
you. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Brandy. And I agree with you that we are in 2020. We are still talking about girls or women having opportunity to play in high level and to be paid equal. So I hope that we can solve that anytime soon. But we'll come back to that, as you said. We'll talk about more Brazil and England announcing about equal pay. So I want to introduce our next speaker. Marcia Tafarel. She's a former Brazilian national team player, and she played against Brandy in 1996. Marcia, welcome to our webinar. Hi.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you. Okay.
You cut a little bit, and I couldn't hear you a little bit, but thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here in this discussion, in this webinar. I think we have a lot of things to talk about it. It's a pleasure to be here with Brandy, with Soline, with these empowered women that always have something to say about women's football, and the fights that we have along the way to make progress in your countries, and continue to develop was sports and boost in reach of the equality that we want. I really appreciate the invitation. Like you said, my background was a player in Brazil. I cannot say that I was a professional player in Brazil, because in Brazil, professional soccer for women is happening right now. Before we had to work to be able to play. So it was not easy for us. Was even prohibited for 40 years to play soccer in Brazil. Women could not play until, beginning of the 80s. So it's a long prohibition that we had up there. So now, I used to say my generation was the first generation after the law that prohibited women to play soccer, to kind of, try to play, try to be active in that sport. So I always to say we were the ones that plant the seeds for the next generation to harvest that seed. So, you know, it's hard to talk about women's soccer without talk about fights, you know, or talk about activism. And that is what Cis and I have been doing for many, many years in Brazil. We have a history, you know, Cis was a player in the 90s and in the 80s and the 90s. Brandy knows her well. Brandy played with Cici for Cyber Race here in the Bay Area. So we have been talking with Brazilian Federation for many, many years about, you know, implementations of some implementation of rules that would bring improvements for women's soccer. And finally, we are seeing lights in the end of the tunnel, I say, because the last announcements brought some smile in your faces. But I'm cautious to talk about that improvements because, you know, always have fine lines. With Brazilian Federation, always have fine lines that you cannot read up there exactly what's going on. So in the same sense that they put the announcement up there for everybody to see, I want to see the fine lines, you know, because it's not well explained how this is gonna happen. And in Brazil, if you don't read the fine lines and you don't understand, they go around, you know, they try to get away with things that they say, but then they don't put in action. And that has been for many, 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 many years. You know, if we were prohibited to play soccer for 40 years, for almost 40 years, we have been fighting for those improvements that doesn't happen. And they say, yeah, it's gonna happen. But then, you know, it's 40 years that we see very slow improvements in Brazil. So with this announcement that, you know, women's soccer is gonna have the same pay of the men's soccer, I need to be cautious with that, because in the same sense that they say that for everybody to hear, I know I always have the fine line. So I wanna see how this is gonna happen. I wanna see, you know, what means equal pay. You guys gonna really pay equally when the players are selected for the Brazilian national team, or is proportional, you know, like the president said, in a World Cup it's not gonna be equal pay. Is a proportional to what FIFA repass to the federation. Of course, that money is completely different that they pass for the men's team or for the men's World Cup and what they pass for the women's World Cup. So we have, like I said, fine lines that I want to understand, and I want to, you know, I want to keep my eyes, because if something you know, goes against what they are saying, we are here to say, hey, hold on, what's going on up there, you know, and continue to push for improvements, you know. So I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy that Pia is in the head coach of the Brazilian women's soccer team, because I think her knowledge is gonna bring some improvements up there, not only for the national team, but for the development of the women's soccer in Brazil. We need to develop the youth soccer in Brazil that is very slow. We don't have, you know, tournaments consistently. We need to have improvements in that area as well. But it's a step ahead. You know, I'm happy, but caution's happy.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I think we have a Brazilian coach here, Jose Ricardo Rambo. He wants to say a couple of words. Jose, if you can turn on your camera and talk to us, Jose.
And Jose is in Hong Kong also, which is an interesting, you know, diversifying geographically of our reach. So let's see if Jose hears us.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, welcome, Jose.
Hi,
yeah,
hello.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a great, it's a pleasure to be here and also meet Marcia. Tudo bem, Marcia? Yeah.
Oi, José, é um prazer enorme.
Prazer mesmo ver você. Well, I think it's we all know, and we fight for this through long time. And I think Brandy said a very important thing is every time we go a meeting, we say we have to change this, to change that, but sometimes never happens. In Asia and also in every MAs, we're fighting here every second of the day to get priorities, or to get our herds to develop the football in Hong Kong, which is small place, and we need a lot of resources. And sometimes when resources come from FIFA, from FC, we have to fight to get to our side, not to the men's side, which couldn't happen. I think is like we say, we have to fight to get this in the same proportion, or in the same way. And I think very interesting to see Brazil is going to a way that we want to show that we're doing something for the media or for everything, but the real change have to happen, and have to start with the youth team, have to start with the develop youth competition teams, and giving this opportunity to them to play. I think Hong Kong is really developed well. I think it's very good youth developed with Betty is one of the manager for long time here, and I just been on women's football for 3 years, but I've been working hard and trying to get the most of resource we can for improving the football here.
Thank you.
Just to add, sorry, Anna, I didn't touch base in the sense that one big improvement that I see from Brazilian Federation is that they put women's in positions of decision making. So Aline Pellegrino now is the director or the coordinator of competitions for the women's soccer, and Duda Luzielli is the coordinator for the national team. So that is a huge improvement that we have been asking for many years. Let's put more women involved in women's soccer. Let's put more women in a technical direction. Let's put more women in decision making. And finally, they announced those two names that were former players that were involved in women's soccer in Brazil. And I'm very glad, very happy with that announcement.
And talking about women in positions of power, so Anna, in addition to being the moderator of this webinar, is also member of the executive committee of the Armenian Football Federation, in charge with women football. So I would like to hear also from her a little bit of how has, it has been all this, couple of years, I think, since you took over the Armenian football in a society that is also, very traditional in many ways. And you encounter the type of obstacles that our speakers, mentioned before. So let's, give away a little bit the moderating task and hear a little bit about your experience.
Okay, thank you, Vlad. So I took over of women football in Armenia 2 years ago. I was appointed as a head of women football, but before that, from 2016, with Andrea Montalbano, we started the NGO called Girls of Armenian Leadership Soccer. We had Peace Corps volunteers helping us. So the idea of starting this is to develop women football. It's not only professional way, but to give the girls the opportunity to have in a week, 6 hours for themselves to play, rather than helping parents in the houses or doing, I don't know, what this housewife is doing when they are 12. So we started this program with having a local leagues for the girls, different ages. And when I took over here, it was easier because we already developed some leagues with more than, 700 girls playing in all over Armenia. And as Brandy said, we need men to support us to develop this. And 2 years ago, when we had the new president of Federation, and his daughter is playing, and he's very involved in women football. He knows everybody. He knows you, Brandy, very well. So it was really very good to have his support, and he's supporting us in every step we do in developing women football. As Vlad said, we have traditional society, and the main challenge for us is to change the perspective, perception, or how they, how they accept women football. So far, we did some changes. People are starting, like for example, news website, they are starting to post about women football. We had the national team friendly game in March broadcasted live on our pages, on federation pages, but still, it's very little steps that that are going to the development. And I hope that by doing all these small steps and by having a president, a general secretary of the federations to support, it's very important. And as Marcia said, that Brazilians, they are now changing, to have former players to be heads of women football in the countries. It's very right thing. We have, for example, UEFA Nadine Kessler as a head of women football in UEFA. She's former German national team player. And it is helping very much because she knows the game from inside. She knows the problems from inside. She knows the challenges. And what UEFA and FIFA is doing now in terms of developing all countries in the same level, it's very right. And I think that that helps having former players and people involved in sports, being athletes, to lead the women football. And here we are still have the male dominated society. We have in some places equality, but we are very far from getting like equal payment or equal opportunities. Now we are creating these opportunities for the national teams, women national teams. We are creating the opportunity for little kids starting for playing when they are 5 years old. For example, nobody will imagine that 2 years ago, the girls 5 or 6 years, they will want to play. Now we have the national team players, women national team players that the little girls want to be like. Before they wanted to be like, I don't know, Ronaldo, Messi. Now they want to be like our national team players. They played only one game, one friendly, and now it changed it all because we did not lose like 20-0 as everybody accepted to see. So that's why I think that we are on the right pathway with help of all this big organization like UEFA and FIFA.
Thank you, Anna. So again, I would like to invite our audience to ask questions, but I would like maybe to start by the discussion that started in chat between Sarah and Brandy about the role the youth players could play in promoting the game, in advocacy for the game, in activism on behalf of the game. It's a question by Sarah Gomez. And in general, even, I remember when I was talking to Anna about her experience in Armenia, I think one of the major obstacles are obviously the mentalities, and it goes to the teachers and the parents and the community, and so what can be done in order for these obstacles to be overcome, to be possible for little girls, older girls to actually join this sport with the hope that it means something, not only in terms of becoming a professional, but it means something for their lives. So because the discussion started between Sarah and Brandy, I would like to invite Brandy maybe to address these issues.
Vlad, I love that you have confidence that I can answer this question, which I will only just give my opinion because I think, again, actions are really the things that need to speak louder than our words. Number one, I would say for the sport of football, because it is shared so passionately and so deeply entrenched in the culture of so many countries around the world, we can start it with young girls and boys playing together at the youngest of ages. So if we do that, I believe that there becomes less divide between the two. we share the game as it is in its whole, and with the same passion to both sides. You know, we roll the ball out to the young girls as we do the young boys in an environment that has openness and appreciation for who they are. And it doesn't separate them. So I feel like if we can start this at this grassroots level, the most, you know, grassroots level, it's the 4s, the 5s, the 6, the 7-year-olds. And then to your comment, Vlad, about, you know, it's the parents, right? So if the parents see these young kids enjoying the sport as they enjoy the sport as adults, then we start to see that there's less about you and then me, and it's just about we, right? So then I think we get a little closer. You know, the division starts to come when the physical part starts to separate us, right? The strength, the speed, the level, you know, that starts to change, and that's okay, because we have to encourage competition on both sides of the discussion. We have to, it's not just about hard work, it's about competing every day, and it's about to be the best and to be the champion, if that's the pathway you want, because we all seem to be at this high level in national teams, and, you know, we're talking about working with professional players, but at the younger levels, it's also important to keep these ideals strong, right? The idea of competing within yourself, not in relation to other people, I think that's critical. We build self-esteem and we build confidence for these young people to use football as their foundation for, maybe it's being, maybe it's working for FIFA, or maybe it's working for UEFA, maybe it's working in the Brazilian Federation. You know, as Tafarel said, it's taking those positions of power and leadership in a federation where maybe it hasn't been encouraged for a woman to exist, right? Or to be the man who encourages the woman to join the group. So I think that's where we begin. I think this is where this discussion has to begin and has to stay forever, because that will be the framework for the rest of what we do. But in terms of us adults who have kind of been conditioned against this, or, you know, or for me, I grew up in Northern California, so I've been conditioned to believe that I can do anything. You know, we still have to work and row the boat in the same direction towards equity and opportunity. And it just takes one. This is what Vlad, I'm going to say to you and to everybody else, that, you know, I am 50. Oh gosh, how old am I? I'm 52 years old. I can hardly remember. I'm 52 years old. And for the first time in my life, I'm working outside of football for over, you know, almost 3.5 decades. So I'm trying to do something I'm asking my players to do, which is get outside of my comfort zone and to use my left foot or use their right foot, depending on what the weaker side is, and to see yourself as being more than just what other people think you can be. And so I'm challenging myself and I'm competing with myself every day to use my football lessons in a tech world. And so I'm feeling the discomfort of what we all feel trying to make this happen, but the discomfort is really my medal. It's my call to action. It's I can do it. It's what I need to show myself that I am powerful. And that's without going any further on my soapbox, that is the lessons that we need to convey to our young people, because as I said to Sarah, the youth are the reason, and they are the ones who have the biggest voice, because this is their future. So we have to empower them to see that they are a part of this process and not just a byproduct of whatever we decide it should be.
Yeah. Very important points, and mostly because Ruzima from Kenya, again, this webinar is again global. That means, you know, all over the world, people are watching this. Mentioned that she, you know, wanted maybe to play football at some point, but could not do it because of the circumstances surrounding her. So it's an important question. I would like to maybe go, you know, through the other speakers. Maybe Celine could. Oh, nice dog.
Yeah, sorry, she doesn't like to be out of the room when I'm on Zoom, so you have her in your forum now.
So this is the type of audience we never had before. So
Yes.
it's
Very
Celine,
interested in learning.
a little bit about youth development and the importance of actually, convincing, the society in general that this is an endeavor that, if you have the talent, you have the interest, and if you are a girl, you should play football. You should find the conditions. So how does this play in the Middle East, in Jordan? Maybe unmute your microphone.
Yeah.
I think.
No, I'm fine. Okay, well, Vlad, I think this is very important issue that we have, or we had for a long time, that many girls, they have passion to play football. Many girls, they wanted to follow their dreams and play football, but they faced the cultural barriers, faced the mentality of not letting their parents for them to play football. But as Marcia and Brandy said, it's all about time. I believe that the awareness, the media, the results of or the improvement and development of the women's football inside the country, it attracts more people to let their girls play. So it's with time they can still follow their dream. But my advice for the youth, my advice for the little girls, don't stop following your dream. Keep following your passion and your dream. It doesn't even if it takes time, but it will happen one day. For myself, I had to lie on my parents to go to the trainings for 1 year. 1 year they didn't know I'm going to play football or going to train with the club. They didn't know, but because I love this game, so I had to lie at some point in my life because they didn't want me to play. Not because they're very close-minded, but because they want me to play something for girls, as they think. Like dancing, basketball is fine, but not a male game at that time. So I had to lie, but I didn't stop. I kept following and I kept chasing. And as Marcia and Brandy and Anna said, now it's very important for us as women, former players, to make decisions, to change, to let the new generation have a better opportunity, a better environment to play in. So I think now the future is theirs. Now we are working for them. So I hope they will not let us down. They will prove that we are working for something good to change the future. And I believe one day we will have the equal opportunity, like men, like girls, just because of as former player, a decision maker, and them as hard workers and to keep following their dreams.
Marcia, in Brazil, football is a way of life. Is way much more than a sport. So, sometimes when that's the case, when the sport is a way of life, it makes it even more difficult to break barriers. So how did this, the development of women football played into this, maybe in Brazil more than any other country, we could talk about the, football culture. So football culture in the country that actually has this tremendous passion for football.
Yeah, Vlad, you said Brazil is the country of soccer, yeah? Or they have this religion about soccer, but that is for men's. For women's is completely different. And Brandy probably went to Brazil once, and she was able to see a little bit the difference between encouraging a boy to play soccer and encouraging a girl to play soccer. Is completely different in Brazil. When I start to play soccer in Brazil, I play soccer because my mom encouraged me. Part of my family would say, no, soccer is not for girls. You cannot play soccer. And my mom was the one that insist and fight with part of the family to say, no, it's a sports activity. She wants to do it. She's gonna do it because it's good for her and makes her happy. So most of the girls that play soccer in Brazil, and I'm talking about youth development. Brandy said she grew up, doing what she wanted because her family encouraged. It's different in Brazil for girls that wants to play soccer. So that's why we don't have quantity. We have quality in Brazil, lot of quality, because those girls that fight, you know, the barriers that have to play soccer and go through those barriers, obstacles. But many talents are lost in Brazil because they don't see the encouragement to continue in that path. So and that's why I said we need to develop youth soccer, youth women's soccer in Brazil differently than we develop here in US. Here in US, you have the encouragement of the family to do sports activity, to do anything that you want. In Brazil, families don't encourage girls to play soccer. If they can take away that sports from their girls' mind, they would. So we need to first change the culture in Brazil, and to change the culture in Brazil is really hard because it's a macho culture. So how you introduce, you know, that mentality to the families that soccer is good, doesn't matter if it's girls or boys, you know. So I think we need to start to do programs, and you know, we have PDPs, ODPs in US that support girls to go through the programs and that develop. I think, you know, my suggestion to Brazil is always to create programs where the girls can go and play. Of course, I agree with Brandy that, you know, in the grassroots, 5, 6, 7 years old, the girls can play with the boys. Yes, I agree with that. But we also need to create programs that is for girls to develop and be able to follow those paths after the grassroots, which, you know, unfortunately doesn't exist in Brazil. You know, you see a lot of soccer schools for boys, but you don't see soccer schools for girls. You know, when they turn 14, 15 years old, the girls that follow the path of soccer, they go to professional already because they don't have those steps. Okay, let's go to U15, let's go to U16, let's go to U17. They don't have that path like we have here in US. So we need to start to create something that is gonna take those gaps of development where you don't skip steps, you know, like for example, I was 14 years old and I was playing already with girls 20, 21, 22. So I skipped some steps. So I think since we are in the beginning of development of women's soccer in Brazil, I think we need to start to create programs that is gonna help in that sense, you know, for the girls to have a step-by-step development until they get to the professional level.
If I may, Vlad, if I may interject at this point, just to make a comment. Is it okay, Anna, if I make a comment?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
I actually went with the Department of State on a trip to Brazil, Tafa, and we went to a few SESCs. You know, their government environment encouraged locations that have all kinds of sports. And the one thing I did notice is exactly what you're saying, that it allowed girls and boys to participate. However, there was immediately when the footballs came out, then it was the boys would play and the girls would sit on the sideline. And then I asked the girls, you know, what sport do you play? You know, and their comments were dance, volleyball. Dance and volleyball were kind of the two main ones, which are both very valid and I think are very important and actually very good. It's movement, it's teamwork, it's all good. I'm not against any of those, and I feel like I want to encourage those girls to do that. But there was definitely a divide, and so when we're talking about this is a systematic issue, right, as well, because this is a government program and it doesn't exist there. So this is not just families at home talking. This is obviously greater than that. It's systems in place that actually, by not encouraging, they are pushing down. They're pushing down, and they're really discouraging people from participating because they're not encouraging. So it kind of is twofold there. I think it's us as grassroots, us as passionate footballers, but also it's, again, we have to get into mainstream, whether we want to or not, because government makes change with voting, with And if we can get government, or we can get those who are the princes, as Soline said, to be advocates, then we can really disrupt. I'm into disrupting things right now in a positive way. I think positive, optimistic disruption is very important, because sometimes people don't know what they don't know. They don't know. I'm speaking with Sarah and Jose in the chat, and we're talking about scientific studies that say when young girls participate in sports, they are 45% more likely to have higher education. They are 55% more likely not to have teenage pregnancies. When they participate in sports, they are more likely to go on to have jobs outside of the home. You know, the statistics are ridiculously in favor of participation. So who in their right mind, whether it's cultural or not, who have young girls in their lives who see statistics like that, based on science, not on opinion, that can argue why it would be bad if it existed. So, you know, I would say there, you know, please do some research into these scientific studies in youth development and sport as advocates, as advocacy for your going forward in your communities, to say, look, just because it happened in the US doesn't mean it can't happen here, but here's the science behind it. It's not just my word. It's been practiced and it's been proven because they've watched it over time and they've studied it.
And Brandy, I'm gonna add in, you said you were in a video call with the Washington Spirit. You participate in clinics and camps. We did camps together, correct? Chevron, yeah, etc. Right. So the pioneers of women's soccer here are visible. They are not invisible. They participate in clinics. They go, they spread the word. They are role models. In Brazil, they don't use the former women's soccer players in this sense, you know. Let's bring these pioneers, former soccer players, to talk in schools or to talk in camps, in clinics, in soccer clinics. And that drives me crazy because, you know, we play soccer, we represent our country for many, many years, and then our career was a soccer player is done in Brazil, you are put it to the side. So the big name right now is Marta. How many times Marta went to do clinics in Brazil? Maybe here in US, a lot, but in Brazil, not much. So that is what I'm still, you know, touching base with CBF. Hey, let's do, you know, webinars, let's do clinics, let's do camps and bring former soccer players to talk with families, with girls that want to play soccer, but maybe don't feel the encouragement to play soccer because they feel that don't belong, you know. So it's unfortunately in Brazil is not, they don't value what we did in the past. Everything is present or future. The past is kind of put to the side and done, you know. I hear about the 1990s all the time because it was important, you know, because it was important. But for us that played the first World Cup in 1991, or for us that played the first Olympic game in 1996, people don't talk about in Brazil, because in Brazil is today, you know, is the Marta, you know, is the Cristiane, is sometimes they talk about the Formiga because Formiga is forever there, you know. You know, it's like she is one, I call her ET, you know, because she's 42 and she's still playing in the national team. But we need to have the revigoration of the Brazilian national team. A new generation is coming. And how this new generation is coming? Sometimes you see new players with kind of, we say Marra. Marra in Brazil is that player that thinks that she knows everything, you know, is the new player that is starting to get to the media, and she thinks that she knows everything, and she doesn't know anything about the history. Why we started, how we started before the law that was prohibited in Brazil, you know. Who was the pioneers? Who was Sissi? Who was, you know, they don't know. They know Marta, they know Cristiane, but they don't know that generation that fought for them, you know, and that drives me crazy. So why CBF do not encourage those pioneers to come and talk with the new generation? Or, you know, bring Cici, bring Elane, bring somebody from the from the old generation to talk with new Brazilian players. You know, anyways, it's just put outside up there, because it's what happened in a macho country, in a culture that is really hard to help sometimes to open their minds. But I just want to put up there.
Yeah, but sorry, Anna, I have one comment.
Sure.
After what we have said, because we're sharing, I think we're sharing the same stories, the same history. So what I think now, and what makes me realize now, that it's not about the religion, it's not about the culture, it's not about the geographical distribution. It's all about a myth. It's a myth that this game is for a man. And once it's easy to change that, because there's no principle about this, because for the parents who started to accept their girls playing, it was different approach for them. Some of them because they see their girls' pictures on the newspaper, they are proud now. Some of them because their girls start taking money, so they're now happy because they're bringing money. Some of them because their girls start to take scholarships. So it's not about religion, it's not about culture. We can't change it, but it's all about time. It's still young game. So it's all about time. I believe because we are there, we can't change it.
Perfect, thank you. I agree with all of you that we can change it, and we seem very strong now. All of us, we are four of us here on page. So I think that with help of everybody, we can change it, and we should change it, because it's time. It's 21st century, and it's time for the girls starting 4 years, whenever they want to, they need to play the game that they love. And it's not, nobody can say that like 5 years old kid cannot go to play football or kick the ball because she's girl. No, that's not that time. So we need to change it. And here I will give some examples. 4 years ago, when we started here, the girls we talked in Sunik region, a region far from the capital, they couldn't even imagine that they can, first of all, play the game, then be invited to the national team, then to get education. Now we have 14 players from the regions in different age group national teams. We have 4 girls from that region that we talked 4 years ago entering the universities. So we changed their lives in terms of giving opportunity for them to see that there is life, there is real life outside of the small village that they have. So I think that we can change this and can change kind of minds of the parents and the society, that the girls can do it. And I want to talk also, like everybody is talking about that a week ago, Brazil and England announced about equal pay. I'm not sure what it will change in general in terms of understanding the game or accepting the game, but I want to hear from you how these two federations announcing this will change the game in general in the world. Celine, let's start with you.
Yeah, sorry again, Anna.
So Brazil and England announced they will pay equal for the national teams, the national team as men. So I want to know what you think, what it will change in understanding of the game in general in the world.
Yeah, of course, it will change a lot, because for all our life, for example, in the Middle East, we look up forward to Brazil, to the US, to England, to those countries who are at the top level. And because we want to improve ourselves, so we always want to take from their own experience and to start follow, but be realistic at the same time. So for example, us at Jordan FA, we already are now taking all the support and the fund from FIFA and the AFC, and we give it all, allocated this to women's football. We don't allow men to take from our fund. So now we are following, and this will be a huge step to change the women's football in the whole world. And believe me, many countries will follow this in very short time. So this is a great step forward.
Perfect. Brandy?
Well, I have, again, a lot of opinions on this announcement, and I'm glad that Tafarel brought it up because I feel that what I love about Brazilian football is it's the most creative and the most deceptive and the most passionate, right? So I think they make this claim and this statement with those assets, meaning that, as Tafarel says, you have to read the fine line. Yes, they're saying we're going to have equal pay, but their players on the men's side make tens of millions of dollars playing club football. Whether they get paid $1 million playing for their national team makes zero difference to them. So whether they make $1,000 makes zero difference to them. Whereas on the flip side, on the women's side, making $1,000 can make a humongous difference. That those dollars are not equal in what they represent. And so when they say, yes, we're going to pay them equally, I also hold reservation. I love the statement, but it's the action and the real intention and the understanding, the creativity in which they crafted that statement is really true to Brazilian football, because they are so incredible at making you think one thing and they do another thing. That's what makes Brazilian football one of the most glorious teams to watch, right? Male or female. You never know which way they're going and how they're going to do it. So I say take caution in falling victim to the, oh, that's so great, thank you very much for accepting women and giving this opportunity to make equal pay. Because until they say what that number is, and Tafarel is right, when it comes to FIFA and when it comes to World Cups and it comes to participation, that scale couldn't be any more different, right? So when they say equal, let me tell you, when these guys get to the quarterfinal and these women get to the quarterfinal, the money will not be like this. So I am optimistically hopeful, because I'm a true believer in people will do what they say, and I want to continue to be that type of person. But I'm also a person of action in that my actions will absolutely mimic my words. And so I will listen and I will be hopeful. And I want it to happen, because I think what Celine is true. It is a myth that the game belongs to one side of the genders, right? It belongs to one side. The reality is it doesn't. It belongs to everybody. But I think I would also caution Celine in that when you say our fund, we've been saying ours as in football's fund. You have to be careful, because if you're going to now say it belongs only to women's football, then you're going to get the same argument back, which is, wait, does it belong to football or does it belong to you? I would just, just as a cautionary tale.
Okay, thank you. But because we use, okay, I know it belongs to football and we have to have equal opportunities, but knowing what used to happen before, that we didn't have anything from these kind of funds. But now, at least now we are changing. That's what I mean. I'm trying to be very positive, but at some point, we have to have equal, regardless of which funds it's belong.
And I'm going to give you all an example of what's happened in U.S. soccer recently in relation to sponsorship in dollars. I have worked professionally outside of U.S. soccer with Visa, who is obviously a very global name, and they are everywhere. Everybody understands what Visa means. Visa has been a huge advocate of football for a long time, men's and women's, in World Cups and Olympic Games. They are in sport. They love it. Recently, they wanted to sponsor women's football, and U.S. Soccer said, no, if you want to sponsor, you have to sponsor all of football, right? You sponsor both. And so they said, okay, we want to, we love football, we're in. However, this is where the fine print comes in tough. This is when you have to read everything, because in US soccer, once a sponsor puts money in, they decide where the money goes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. So then what?
Brandy, you touching one point that I was ready to touch.
Hold on. So let me just finish
Go
really
ahead.
quick and you can. So when Visa said we will sponsor both, but it must be used 50-50. And if it's not, we are not doing a deal with you. And US Soccer said, well, that's not how we do it. And they said, well, we won't work with you then. And then US Soccer came back to them and said, okay, we will do it. We will make it even. But it took, even in the US, with the most progressive place in maybe football for women, that argument happened within the last 1 year.
I can't believe, to be honest. It's shocking.
No, but you can believe it, because I'm telling you it from the mouth of the people who were making this. They told me.
Yeah.
And I said, that's good to know that Visa is standing up even to US Soccer. We think that US Soccer has it figured out. We don't have it figured out. We've got a very large pool of women who come from a progressive environment and culture, who have, like me, for no good reason, got involved in football, and now the groundswell has been spreading, right? But still, the old ways of doing things have persisted. And this is why I'm grateful to Visa. As a global company, they get it.
Yeah.
They will be an advocate for you, Celine, because when they come to work with the Jordanian Football Federation, they will say, when we work with you, we work equal.
Mhm.
I think that is probably the best statement I've heard within the last year from anyone, because they said, well, we won't do it. And they stood their ground. And I feel that that's very, hopefully for everybody that's listening, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Masha?
Can I add to what Brandy said?
Yes.
Those fine lines. I already gave my opinion about the equal pay in Brazil and what I think is gonna happen, because have been happening for many years. Our first sponsor that we had was Umbro. When I played the first World Cup, Umbro would pass some money for the women's soccer, where the money end up to the men's, to the youth men's, for the national teams, U20s, men's, but small part for the women's. 1996, we first discovered that we had the image money in 1996. Well, I don't know why, end up having some money in my account. After 1 year, we play the Olympic Games. And then I went and asked to the coordinator that was at that time in the Brazilian national team. And he said, oh, it's the image money for the Olympic Games. And I said, after 1 year? Really? Wow. And how we know that money was supposed to be that amount of money? Because we didn't know. We didn't have any information about. Which means maybe was more and they pay less, or maybe was, So those things that have been happening for many years, Brandon. When you touch base that you said, the money that comes for the women's is exactly what happened. Comes for the women, but they put where they want, they don't put in women's football. And another thing that I want to say, and I'm very passionate about talking about that, is that you can hear now in the media that Brazilian Federation or Brazilian Confederation equal pay. And then you're gonna see the structure of women's soccer in Brazil. Okay, the players that are in the national team now is gonna make some money, but what's gonna happen with the players that play the professional league in Brazil? Professional league in Brazil, and I say professional leagues in Brazil because maybe 3 or 4 teams that have, you know, the men's team is strong, like Corinthians, like Flamengo, like, you know, Palmeiras and São Paulo, that are the big teams in São Paulo, in Brazil, maybe they pay the girls. But the majority of the teams in a Brazilian league, they don't pay the girls. They don't have professional players there. Players play for the love of the game, like we did many, many years ago, because those players are not professional. You can, if you don't give health insurance, if the players cannot collect, you know, social security for the future, they are not professional. They don't have, you know, so it's like, I'm very passionate about talking about that, because you cannot improve only the quality of the payment in the national team. You need to work also the structure of the Brazilian league. You need to organize the youth leagues for the youth development. So have a lot of things that Brazil is, like you said, putting there for the media to explode and talk about it. But in reality, when you go deep in a conversation and you go, how is the Brazilian league? Is it very organized? Well, you know, you have 16 teams in a Division 1, you have 36 teams in the Division 2, but how they do, you know, how are those teams? Are those teams very well organized? They have a good structure. They have good fields for the players to practice. They have fields for the players to practice. So you're gonna see in many teams in Brazil that play Division 1 that the girls don't have fields to practice, because, you know, they cannot use the same field that the men's practice. They need to find another, you know, I don't know, a countryside field where they can go and practice, but they don't have the same structure that the men's have. So the men's have a, you know, training center to go to practice. The girls need to go to the little field with a lot of holes in the field and, you know, to be able to practice. So we need to be very, like you said, very careful with the optimism. I'm very cautious about it. Like I said, I'm optimistic that some improvements are happening, but I'm cautious. I know the history of Brazilian Confederation. I know the history of women's soccer in Brazil. So I know, you know, what happened up there for many, many years. So I just want to,
Marta, obviously,
believe.
your enthusiasm is contagious, and all the speakers here illustrate the fact that the sport is in good shape, because, you know, it has people like you, that like all of you, that actually are doing, you know, amazing work. And before you know, finishing, because, you know, unfortunately it is a fascinating discussion, but we are out of time. Before ending, I would like to also invite all of you, before you leave, to actually look at the chat, because what is happening in the chat is fascinating. You know, we have Hamed from Bahrain talking about development of women football in the Gulf countries. We have Sitembeso from South Africa. He's actually talking about an equal pay program in Lesotho and the development of women football in South Africa. We have Carol actually, you know, being optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but also introducing some skepticism from France. And by the way, good luck, you know, congratulations for Olympique Lyon. We have Jill Espirito, who's actually talking about the strategy for development of women football. And again, I invite everybody to continue this discussion offline and separate, because, you know, talking about the strategy that Jill was mentioning, you know, Anna in Armenia with UEFA, they just finalized an amazing strategy for the development of women football in Armenia, which I'm sure is shareable, and it could help everybody to actually make a contribution. They worked for months to the strategy, and it's really amazing. Now, before ending this, I'm not sure if he hears us or if he has mic or video. Orion Murphy is our program officer of the State Department Public Diplomacy, Sports Diplomacy Division. So they are the sponsors of the exchanges that we do when COVID is not around, which I hope that is going to involve all of you in 2021 or even earlier. So if Ryan would like to say a few words maybe towards the end, before finishing this amazing discussion.
Even when COVID is around, we're trying to do different webinars like this and really get different perspectives going on. And Vlad, you and Anna and the team at World Learning are doing an amazing job with leading these discussions. So from the U.S. Department of State, again, we want to thank you all for taking the lead and taking the charge on this. It's such an important topic for us. The U.S. Department of State has been advocates for gender equity in sports throughout all of our programs. Brandy mentioned she went down to Brazil on a women's empowerment program on behalf of us as a sports envoy. We also have these programs with World Learning through the International Sports Programming Initiative that are two-way exchanges. And all of those programs emphasize and increase gender equity within sports. So I just wanted to thank Brandy, Celine, and Marcia for all of the work that you're putting into this and being the passionate voice behind this topic. It's such a great topic for us to be involved in and helping to lead that discussion globally. And we welcome any kind of information that you all have for us. We do have a program that is specifically focused on gender equity. It's part of our global sports mentoring program. And we partner with ESPNW on that program. We have great resources and great partners at the University of Tennessee that help us implement that program. So please take a look at that. I put one of the links in the chat. So again, just wanted to thank you all for having this discussion and being part of this discussion. And Vlad and Anna, as always, great job on this webinar.
Thank you, Ryan. So this has been our webinar on women football, organized by World Learning, working with Digital Communication Network as part of the International Sports Initiative Program, the US State Department Sports Diplomacy Division. I would like to thank the speakers, my co-moderator, our amazing World Learning team, Aaron, Laurel, Nicole, and many others. Thanks for being part of this. Please stay in touch, be safe, and we'll announce the next webinar very soon. Probably we'll have one 2 weeks from today. Thank you so much for being part of this, and both to the speakers and the audience.
Thank you, Vlad and Anna, as always. And Tafa and Celine, thank you for joining in this fight. And I think you're right about time. It will take time, but the time is now. So let's make as much disruption in a positive way as we can.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Brandy, Celine. Thank you.
Nice to see you. We'll keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.